Welcome to the Financial Self-Care Club, Stacie.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, I'm so pumped to have you here. We met through the local Philly networking scene. You run an amazing group called Ladies of Philly as well. And I feel like we share a lot of the same goals and motivations for like helping young women and helping them to empower themselves through real estate, through finances, through all sorts of different areas. So I'm super excited to chat with you today. And we're going to be chatting about one of the biggest purchases that someone would be making probably in their life, which is a home. So, where do we dive in? Because let's say you're that person who you've never bought a home before, or maybe you've bought a home and you're buying your second, but it's been a while and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed with this huge purchase that you have coming up and you don't know where to start and you're like, what's this process going to look like? Talk to us about kind of that planning phase up to buying a house and even through the process of home buying.
Sure, yeah. So I definitely do not recommend just like calling a home off of Zillow and like jumping into the deep end right away. I think especially it is a huge purchase and it's a really big decision. So it's important to take a step back and really get educated and really get clear about what's important to you and what you're looking for and what you're comfortable with financially before you even get to the home, before you even start looking at home.
Yes.
Um, so like the first thing that you should really do, or somebody who is thinking about buying a home, is to have a conversation with a mortgage lender
Mm.
just to see, okay, I make this much, this is how much I have saved, or this is how much I plan to have saved in a year, whatever your goals are. This is my credit score now. What will this look, what will like a $300,000 home look like, or what could I afford now? And if, you don't like what you can afford now, where are your goals at and how do you get there?
Mm.
So kind of getting clear about what you're comfortable with financially is really the first step. And that can be a 15-minute conversation with a lender
Oh,
and kind of clear
so
up
that,
all of
that
those.
can be quicker and easier than you might think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy. It's quick, you know, so
So
yeah.
what does that entail? Do you have to like pull up all your tax returns and stuff, or like I mean, it sounds like it's pretty quick and easy. So I know you're not a mortgage lender, but can you speak a little bit to that process?
Yeah. So right away, I would recommend talking to a local lender. And if, anyone wants a list of recommendations, I am happy to send that. But yeah, just like call up a real human, not somebody from like
Mhm.
e-mortgages or something. And you just talk to them about how much you make, what you have in the bank. You can either have them pull your credit score or you can tell them your credit score, and then they will be able to tell you how much home you can afford. And it's important to talk to a local lender also because closing costs and transfer taxes are different in each city. So you want to talk to someone who's in your city, who is familiar with your city.
Yeah, that was huge. That was something that I learned, at the closing table was, there's these transfer tax, these closing costs. So I love that you talk about getting all that information up front because essentially that person's going to help you determine your budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they come to you and they say, like, is this step two? They come to you and say, hey, this is my budget. I'm looking for a home. Help me find one.
Yeah, so I usually actually meet with people before they talk to a lender because I'm usually the one that introduces them to a lender.
Yep.
But once you know your price range, then we can start talking about what we're looking for in a home. Some people kind of have like an estimate of what they're looking for, but I usually wait until they've had a conversation with a lender. And then from there, we pick out top neighborhoods, top characteristics of a home, and any deal breakers, and get real clear about that before we start looking at things.
So do you typically have your clients come to you with a list of wishes and wants, or how do you kind of get to that point where you're really knowing what you're looking for?
Mhm. I have a little worksheet that I make people fill out.
Love it.
I pass it out, and it seems really simple, but it's really just top 3 neighborhoods,
Mm.
top 3 things that you're looking for, 3 things that would make it better, and 3 deal breakers.
Ooh.
And sometimes we go through that together. Sometimes my clients already know. And sometimes it takes them a couple of weeks and they have to get back to me and send it. It just kind of depends on where they're at. But this is really important to do. You know, I tell people who are even like years away from buying a home, like start working on this.
Yep.
And especially if you're buying a home with somebody else, like it might take some negotiating.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't do this up front, then we start looking at homes and you might have 3 that you really like, but you can't make a decision because you're not sure what's really comfortable or what's really important to you. Or let's say we look all over the city in all different kinds of neighborhoods and you fall in love with a home, but you're like, do I like this neighborhood? Am I comfortable here? Or worst case scenario, you move in and you're like, I don't even like this neighborhood. I need to move again.
Yeah.
So just getting through all of that first and what you're looking for. It'll just save so much time.
Yeah. So being clear on what you want. And do you find a lot of your clients are coming to you knowing what they want already? Or do you feel like people are coming to you struggling and you're helping them through that process?
I'd say it's about 50-50. It kind of depends on when they started. So I met with a client this week who they're not going to buy until next May, but by the time they get there, they'll be ready to go. I know I just also met with a client who wants to buy in November, and we're just kind of getting through that, like having those conversations now. So it just depends.
So neighborhoods, if they're not sure on neighborhood, what are some tips that you would give them for figuring out what neighborhood that might be a good fit for them?
So I just ask my clients, what are you looking for in a neighborhood? Like what's important to you? Where do you work? Is your commute important? Also, your price range, of course, is going to dictate your neighborhood. What's important to you in a home? So if you want new construction and you have a $300,000 budget, that's gonna put you in a different neighborhood automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And also knowing how important the location is to you. So if being in Center City is the number 1 most important thing to you, then we need to talk about like the home itself and be realistic about that. So I think just what they want their lifestyle to look like.
That's huge. And I think it kind of speaks to priorities too, helping people really figure out, okay, there's all these different variables. What are the things that are most important and that you're wanting to prioritize? And is that kind of speaking to that second question you asked too? I forget how you phrased it. It was the things you're looking for most in a house on your worksheet?
Yeah, top 3 most important things
Top
in the
3
home.
most important things. Yeah. Is that tend to be like number of bedrooms or like nice kitchen? Like what do people tend to put on that section?
It just depends. So like for some people, it's really important that they have 3 full bedrooms because their family's from out of town, so they're going to be visiting. For other people, they're okay with a 1 bedroom, but they don't want to do any work when they move in. For other people, it's having a finished basement. For other people, it's having air conditioning installed. For other people, it is having something that's not fixed up and that they can redo themselves. So it's a lot of different things. And it just really depends on your lifestyle and what you want and what you see the next like 5 to 10 years of your life looking like.
Yeah, that's great. And I think these examples are great to get people thinking of, well, how do I know what's important to me? And then you mentioned the third piece was your top 3 deal breakers. What do you mean by deal breakers? I was like, what could be some examples of that?
Yeah. So some people say like, I don't want to do any work. So needing a new kitchen, that's a deal breaker. Or like carpets, needing to tear up carpets, or no backyard, or being on a block where I don't feel safe. Another deal breaker, another air conditioning is a big one, or bedrooms that are too small, no closet space. Those are pretty common. Or like some people a half bath is important to them on the first floor, so like no half bath. or like no kitchen, no space for a dining room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the most common ones.
Yeah, that's great. So if you're thinking about buying a house, planning for buying a house, start there. Once you have your answers or you have some answers or you're ready, just start looking, call Stacie. And then from there, you begin the search process, right? You actually start going and seeing homes.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that like? Is there usually a recommended number of homes you should look at? Are you looking over a certain period of time? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I recommend to give yourself 3 to 4 months from your target move-in date. From the time you find the right home to the time you move in, it takes an average of 45 days. But there's a lot, if you find a home, we have to do the inspection. There's a lot that goes into it, and you might need to cancel that contract and get your deposits back, which is, a different conversation. But I always like my clients to have enough time so that they can restart the process and find something new. So 3 to 4 months. And I would say on average, I probably show between 7 and 10 homes. I've shown one home and it turned out to be the one. I've shown more than that.
Mm-hmm.
It depends, but I think the more that you do the homework before, the clearer you are on what you're looking for, the quicker we can find the one. It usually doesn't take too long to really find to find the right one. Just like 2 or 3 weeks max.
Yeah.
But it depends on the market too. So a market with less inventory, it'll take a little bit longer.
I remember when we were searching, I think we went out twice and we saw maybe 4 or 5 homes. And the second time around, we found the one and we were ready to go and pull the trigger. And I was like, is that fast? I don't know. But, we found it, right?
Yeah. So usually we'll see 4 or 5 homes at a time. And the first time we go out, we'll like kind of add some things to the deal breaker list. And then the second time out, we'll find something.
And that was a neat process too, because we got to walk around neighborhoods, right? So that was kind of answering the question of what neighborhood we wanted as we were looking, because we got to really see what the neighborhood was like just by being there and walking around. And I would wonder if your clients kind of get some of that clarity too, just being in those neighborhoods.
Yeah, I try to have my clients go to the neighborhood before we see homes, just because if the first time we go out, you do see something that you love, but we haven't walked around quite enough, and say, okay, let's say I show you a home in Point Breeze and you absolutely love the home, but there's 3 other offers and you're not really sure if you like the neighborhood, then you're not really in a position to make the best decision. So I always try to, get familiar with the neighborhood, make sure you like it first before you fall in love.
Yeah, that's smart. That's really smart. So you're searching, you find the one, right? Next phase or next step is putting in an offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how's that process like? How do you figure out how much to offer? I'm sure a lot of this is your experience, your expertise and your guidance, but talk to us a little bit about the process of like putting in the offer, negotiating the price, and essentially coming to a deal.
Sure, yeah. So when my clients tell me, oh, I love this house, I think we want to submit an offer, the very first thing that I do is I send them comparable homes that have sold nearby, so that we can kind of figure out what a fair price would be. And right after that, or right before that, during this time, I will call the listing agent if it's not one of my listings, and see what the situation with the sellers, what it is. If it's a builder and they want to get rid of the home very quickly and they want a short close, or if it is like a family who is moving to the suburbs and they haven't even found a home yet, just figure out what that looks like, what their motivations are, and see if there's other offers, because that kind of will change what we offer as well. And then, there's a paperwork called the seller's property disclosure, and that kind of shows anything that might be wrong with the home, any water damage, how old like the HVAC is, so that like might change what we offer as well. And then once we decide on that, we'll decide on a price, and then once again, you'll go back with your lender before we even do the offer to go over the numbers one more time, just to make sure you're comfortable with them. So you don't get to the closing table and be like, oh, that's what this looks like.
Yeah, I remember that. And getting a sheet and stuff, but the sheet was long and there were a lot of different line items. And sometimes you're like, okay, there's that line item. It says this, not exactly sure what that is, but that's where a good lender can really come in, I'm sure.
Yeah. 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 So go over those numbers with the lender again, just to make sure you're comfortable with that. And then we'll actually submit the offer to the sellers in writing. And it kind of depends if there's other offers, we might just have to like give it our absolute best shot. Or if there's no other offers, we can, negotiate a little bit. Maybe they'll come back and counter offer and we'll go back and forth a couple of times. Sometimes my clients will write a letter to the sellers and that helps with some negotiating.
Love it.
That's it. And then once the sellers accept it, they'll sign the offer and then we're under contract.
That's exciting. Do you find that to be a very emotionally charged part of the process?
It can be, but I try to just remind my clients we're still dating. We still have to do the home inspection. We still have quite a few steps until it's yours. And you still need to make good decisions along the way. So don't get too excited. So it's exciting, and sometimes I'm even like, I'm waiting for an offer to come back fine. And I'm like, but I try, yeah. So it's exciting and there are a lot of emotions that come with it, but I try to keep everyone grounded.
That's good. I think that's probably a huge part of your role too, is kind of managing emotions and expectations, because it is an emotional process. You're purchasing not only one of the biggest things price-wise that you'll ever purchase, but also this is your home where you're going to live and maybe, raise a family or do whatever it is you're going to do in that home. So I could see that being a huge part of the process as well. And so you mentioned even after the offer is put in and even accepted, you're not done yet, right? You mentioned the inspection. What are the things that take place post-offer, like the house is yours?
Yeah, sure. So right away, we're going to get a home inspection. And that's when the buyer and I and the home inspector will go through the house and just tear it apart and go through any issues. And after the home inspection is kind of another negotiating period. So we can either cancel the contract if something comes up, or we can negotiate for the sellers to make repairs, or for the sellers to give the buyer back a couple credits at closing so they can make the repairs themselves. But it just depends on what comes up.
Mm-hmm. And probably, things like I bought a new construction. There wasn't a ton of things, if it were an older home, more things might come up through the inspection process.
Yeah, but sometimes with new construction, there are things. So
that's a great point too, actually. If you had a builder who maybe didn't do the best job. Yeah, actually, now that you're mentioning that, I'm thinking of a couple friends who bought new construction and still didn't have a great experience. Yeah. Luckily, our builders were really good and we didn't have any issues, but that inspection's super important.
Yeah, get the home inspection. And then you'll actually apply for the loan on the home. And that's when you'll lock in your interest rate, and you're protected if interest rates do go up, then you can cancel the contract if you need to, and you need to get homeowners insurance. And if any of those things fall apart, you can back out and move on.
So there's a lot of different moving pieces and even kind of members on your team who will be supporting you. You have your mortgage broker, your real estate agent, the inspector, the insurance agent who will do your homeowners. There's the, isn't there like a settlement company or something?
Yeah, the title insurance.
And that's just the person transferring ownership from whoever had it before to you. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. And they also insure the title. So if anything comes up like bad mortgages or anything like that, you're protected.
But it sounds like that team can be built even just through the real estate agent, for example. Do you have a network of people that you bring in and help so your client isn't necessarily the one who's needing to find all these people?
Yeah, totally. So I actually have a sheet that I hand out with my worksheet that is here's your team.
Yes.
And you can always, work with whoever you want if you have a family friend. But my team and I, we've worked together so many times. We know how each other works. It's smooth, it's easy. Everyone kind of knows their place. Usually my clients, they know that all these things are going on, but they're just like focused on packing, like the moment it's done and you don't need to worry about it.
Amazing. Packing itself and moving itself is stressful enough. No one needs to be worrying about all those other things, right?
Yeah, like look for furniture and pick out paint colors. We got you.
Yes, right? Make your Pinterest boards, get the dream home going. I love it.
Yeah, don't worry about title insurance.
Right. You have people that can help you with that. I love that. And it makes the process seem a lot more smooth and easy. You just kind of have to find your agent or find who will help you build out your team, but then you get to show up, look at houses, and focus on moving and creating your dream home, and your team's going to take care of the rest of it for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the goal, and that's why I always tell people, like, do the work ahead of time so that when it is time to look at homes, like, that's what you're doing.
Yep.
And you don't need to worry about anything else.
I love that. I love that. Anything else that first-time home buyer should know about the process or going into it?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception that I hear probably 3 times a day is that you do not need to put down 20%. There seems to be this stigma. I think our parents probably told us that we needed to put down 20%. But oh dear, you do not. Like, I just
put down 5.
Yeah. Like, I was just listening to a lender have a conversation with somebody who's bringing $1,000 to closing. Like, it's just so much more doable, people think. Yeah.
$1,000.
Yeah, because they were filling out a new $10,000 grant. And if you get a seller's assist, there you go.
Huge. So that's a great tip. There could be grants and other opportunities in your local market to help with the purchase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just so much more doable, and I think people are afraid to get started because they just think that they're not there yet. But until you actually have a conversation with a lender, you have no idea. You could be like paying rent for years and years, and you didn't need to pay.
Yeah, I think that's huge. So it's never too early if this is a goal of yours. Even if you don't really have the money saved right now, just reach out and ask, because you never know where you can maybe get a grant. Or tell us what a seller's assist is.
Yeah, so a seller's assist is when you roll closing costs into the mortgage. So in Philadelphia, closing costs are 6% of the purchase price, which can add up. But if you don't have that cash on hand, you can take out a mortgage for the extra amount.
Huge. That's that 6% that you don't have to have saved, and you can pay monthly through your mortgage.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's less time that you're spending paying somebody else's mortgage.
Exactly. Building equity in your own home and your own property.
Yeah.
How does the real estate market affect your role and your job, or how you're advising clients? I know Philly's kind of been really great over the past, I don't know how many years. And I don't know if it's slowing down, or I know the stock market is kind of getting a little volatile. So I'm not exactly sure how the real estate market in Philly is corresponding with that. But how does the market play a role in your job?
Yeah. So, well, interest rates, it affects interest rates, and they are at an all-time low. And the market in general right now is at a peak. So it's not down, but it probably will. And I think just knowing ahead, as a buyer, knowing ahead of time what the market looks like, and so is really interesting because each neighborhood is different.
Yes.
So, you need to know, Grad Hospital, for example. Sorry, I don't know if your listeners are local or.
Some are, but this example can apply no matter what, potentially.
Yeah, so Graduate Hospital is a really popular neighborhood, and homes tend to sell very quickly. So when a home comes on the market, if one of my clients thinks it's the one, like, we need to schedule something ASAP. as if it's a home in a different neighborhood where maybe there's a bit more inventory and the market's a little bit slower. We can wait until this weekend or whenever they have time. So just knowing ahead of time, like how quickly we need to move, and just knowing when we see a home, if the market is quick, being prepared, if you really like it, that you might need to offer a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Or, being prepared, okay, it's listed at X amount, it's been on the market for 90 days, we probably don't even need to get close to asking price. So just kind of having a view of how quickly things are going and how close to asking price they're selling for.
Yeah, and that's something that you can do for them as well, right? Like buyers don't have to have all that information.
Yeah, I tell them, and I kind of do, and I try to, if we need to move quickly, I'm like, okay, let's get out there today or tomorrow. And then when they really like one, I advise them how much they need to be offering.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all these great tips and just what the process looks like, broken down, super simple. My biggest takeaway is that it's never too early to start the conversation. If this is a goal that you have and you're serious about it, start talking to a mortgage broker, start talking to a real estate agent, and get the information, because it's not as hard or as scary as we might think, right? Once we jump in and start the process, especially having people to guide you, it can definitely be a simple, smooth sailing, fun process where you get to look at beautiful homes and create your Pinterest boards and pick out your furniture and your colors. So I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. Stacie, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at thisphillylife_.
Amazing. And you have some first-time home buyer workshops that pop up throughout the year. So definitely give Stacie a follow. Look out for those workshops. And if you're in the Philly area, get your booty to one of them and just continue this conversation in even more depth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks so much, Chrissy.
Thank you, Stacie. Bye.
Bye.